Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Ghosts and Spirits video. Alright, let's go ahead and let's do another entry here. This one yet again based on one of your new suggestions. This one having to do with something where when I saw the title, it instantly caught my attention and I definitely wanted to share it here. It's because of this. Normally when we think of ghosts, they're very inactive. For the most part, they just glide around, are rarely seen, quickly disappear, that kind of stuff. Maybe on a stretch, you might have some ghosts actually looking at you or interacting with you, but still in a very loose manner, either making knocks, footsteps, maybe touching some people here and there. That's about it. But how about a ghost that actually fought with some people? Definitely happened apparently to some scared citizens of a town back in 1904. And when I was reading this information, I just knew I had to share it with everyone here. In fact, you're looking at a representation of it now. And here's the catchy title associated with it. It's known as the Fighting Ghost of Tondu. So let's go ahead and let's share all the info here, and then I'd love to hear what your own thoughts and opinions are with regards to this one-of-a-kind ghost. Definitely something that came and went as well. More on that here in a minute. So here's essentially what happened. You have to go back again to 1904. There at a Welsh village called Tondu, there at a specific disused colliery, which I had to look it up. It means actually something on the lines of a coal mine or coal mine activity at a location called Wynesadre. Hope I'm saying that correctly. Wynesadre. This was a colliery that was considered heavily haunted at the time, but apparently people just hadn't seen whatever it was that was haunting that location. Well, as it turns out, in September of 1904, finally, this ghost, the spectra, decided to make its appearance. And what an appearance. It made its appearance to some workmen, and here is how they described it. There it was, gliding towards them. It was shrouded in white. Think of it like having like a classic drape, like a white drape over it, although think of it more on a spooky level. And instead of having eyes, it had these very large black sockets. But there it was, looking straight at them, and then lo and behold, after it started gliding towards them, that's when all of a sudden it stated boo, like it did a huge cry of boo to them. And then of course this made those people, which were apparently 12 of them altogether, 12 of these Welsh miners, run afterward because they didn't want to dare stay any longer with that location. And then shortly afterward, there was another guy, a Welshman, who was taking a walk down that lonely road that's nearby that colliery. He was in turn passing by some deserted buildings and so on. And then that's when at the end of a tunnel, either he was turning into that tunnel or who knows, maybe it just caught his attention as he was passing by. That's when he saw once again this fighting ghost of Tondu. This time though, the ghost was described with more detail and it ended up doing something very, very harmful. First off, he was able to see the head, and it was described as being a skull covered with wrinkled parchment. He once again noted that all the eye sockets were essentially hollow, but on the inside, they were actually glowing. It was almost like they were creating their own light from inwards. On top of that, it seemed to have a cadaverous figure associated with it, and then there it was again draped with that very long white sheet, whatever that was covering it all together. This time though, instead of this fighting ghost of Tondu gliding towards him, slowly gliding, it ended up rushing him, actually running towards him. Think of it in a very, very quick manner. Obviously, this poor witchman was completely just frightened at what was happening because there it was, running towards him, long arms outstretched, and then in a horrifying way, it instantly grabbed him. Can you believe that? A ghost actually grabbing someone, grabbed him, and it was almost with a vice-like grip. I got the impression that it took its long arms and almost did like a bear hug. Imagine something along those lines. So tight was that vice-like grip that this poor Welshman was stating he could hardly breathe. Whatever it was that this ghost was doing, clearly wasn't good. And then on top of that, it was causing him great damage, almost to the point of being very dangerous because of it. The scarier part, though, was this. The ghost could easily grab this poor Welshman, but when he in turn was trying to get away from it, all he was doing was meeting just pure thin air. The logic of it obviously goes out the window. There he saw these vice-like hands just gripping him and crushing him, and yet when he was trying to in turn grab them to pull them off, he was basically getting nothing, just pure thin air. But then finally, it looks like he was able to get away almost by pure happen chance because he toppled over. This in turn caused the fighting ghost of Tondu to let go, and then it glided off, this time with a very sinister, almost hollow laugh. So by that point, there were two encounters, both within a very short period, both within the same vicinity, from this fighting ghost of Tondu, and ended up making headlines associated with one of the local newspapers, I guess, or reports, something along those lines, and this terrified many of the citizens there. In fact, it was stated that people were staying home at night, especially the women and children. They were kept indoors after nightfall. There was a band of several men that ended up getting together, complete with bludgeons and pitchforks. They patrolled those country roads and those areas I was mentioning earlier near the colliery to try to see what could happen, what could occur to get this ghost out or to get it away, something along those lines. But as it turns out, they were never able to see it again. In fact, the closest thing was there was maybe one more group that saw this ghost, but then nothing really happened for that interaction. But otherwise, there was nothing else associated with it. There was one more report that I saw that there could have been another encounter involving 12 men who ended up leaving, but then they fought with one another to escape from this ghost. But I couldn't get much information on it. I think it was more along the lines of a mix-up, like when it comes to that very first encounter compared to this one here. And then there was another encounter where apparently a servant girl had seen this fighting ghost, but it was very far in the distance, and the way she described it was groaning here and there and moving its arms about. But again, this was very not reputable when it comes to this because of the distance associated with it. But who knows? There's theories tied to who this fighting ghost of Tondu was. Considering the fact that this occurred nearby that coal mine, it could have been a victim associated with that location. Obviously, coal mines are very dangerous. Even now, to this day. So it could have been someone whose life was claimed during that time period when it was up and operating. Or there was the idea that it could have been a murdered person, someone else that who knows who did it and who knows who was the victim. But there he was in turn now, gliding from one place to another, trying to enact revenge against anyone who came by its area, and so on. There's even the idea that this fighting ghost of Tondu could have actually been a prankster, somebody that was in turn playing a big prank, a bad one, definitely not a good one when it comes to scaring people and fighting with them. But it was just a regular person in some kind of attire, and I guess with the nighttime and then also with the dim lights, it in turn was able to look much more than it was, as far as it being an evil specter, when in turn it was just a regular person just doing a bad joke. But lo and behold, as quickly as this fighting ghost came on board, it ended up going away. That was about it. Once publications started to come out, and they were talking about this fighting ghost and then also of the watch parties that were going about here and there, that was it. It was gone. There was no longer any more indications of the fighting ghost running around that area or of other encounters other than the first two I mentioned and then the last two as well, which are kind of debatable, but nothing else in terms of other type of encounters that are listed there. So it gives credence to the idea that it could have been more along the lines of a prankster, that somebody was doing this and maybe things were getting out of hand and they in turn didn't want to get caught as far as, these watch parties and so on. But who knows? It could have just been a ghost all along, somebody that decided in the afterlife to get some kind of revenge, and then satisfied at that, it was able to be released wherever it went afterward. But that's pretty much it. That's all the information associated with the fighting Ghost of Tondu, over 100 years old. To this day, nothing really else stands out. Like, nobody else has mentioned anything there in that location about new encounters associated with it. But who knows, maybe tomorrow that might change. It might just come back afterward. But if anybody has any more info, especially on the local level, maybe some of you there that are in that Welsh village of Tondu, maybe know that area, that Sadre, please let me know. Post those comments below. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care. Bye.